government is poised to release some 700,000 hectares of unused vacant land for agricultural use in the next 2 weeks. This follows a February announcement by President Cyril Ramaphosa that government land would be released to the public. Now, Minister of Agriculture, Thoko Didiza, revealed yesterday that 135,000 hectares have already been released to 125 Mpumalanga beneficiaries. Agri SA says government is on the right track, but its noble intentions will be derailed if strict controls are not followed. Now, Agri SA's first black executive director, in fact, Christo Van Der Rheed, joins us now from Pretoria this morning. Christo, good morning. Thanks for your time. And that is the big question, isn't it? It's a great initiative, but how do we ensure that the land ends up in the right hands?
Indeed, we are very supportive of this. This is the right road to follow in terms of addressing the social injustices of the past. But it's very critical for us that that land must contribute towards, one, food security in the country, secondly, to job creation, and thirdly, to economic growth. And that's why it's so critical that the right beneficiaries are placed on that land. Remember, that land is not available for human settlements or any other purposes. It's there for agricultural purposes.
So the 135,000 hectares that have already been released, we're told, to 125 beneficiaries in Mpumalanga. Do you know how long ago that was done and whether we can already see what the plans for that land is?
Remember, since the first presidential address by President Ramaphosa, he made it very clear that land will be transferred for commercial agricultural purposes. So now those projects are already been happening for the past 2 years. I'm not so certain what is actually happening on that land, but I see as part of the conditions that are stipulated in the report that was released by the minister yesterday, is that there will be regular monitoring and an annual report must be submitted to the minister to indicate the successes on that land and what's happening on that land.
Yeah. So you talk about food creation, job creation, food security, and economic growth. This land, it's being released to these beneficiaries. Does it come with a training program? Because as we know, agriculture is a long-term investment, not just a one-off.
Remember, agriculture is a very risky business in South Africa due to the fact that we have very low rainfall and we have other like things like pests and commodity prices that one moment it's high, the next moment it's low. So it's a risky business. It's a long-term investment. And why are your white commercial farmers so successful? One, they've been trained extensively. Pre-1994, there were colleges established. These colleges trained people very extensively. Secondly, the land bank was established to fund people. It's one thing to give people land, but you need ongoing production capital. In other words, farmers must on an annual basis go and apply for production loans to buy seed, to buy diesel, to buy fertilizer. And if these conditions are in place, then yes, those farmers that will benefit from this distribution will be successful over the long term.
What about finance, Christo? What's going to be the agreement here according to finance? So the land is released to a farmer who is able to go for training, but the initial cash injection or the ongoing cash that is needed to finance the business of agriculture, machinery, seeds, to name just a few. I'm not an expert in the field, but how is that going to work?
Obviously, within this document, government has very noble intentions around that, and that's very good. There's a process of selection, there's a process of training, there's agreements in place, there's monitoring and evaluation. All of those beautiful things are in place.
Yeah.
But it is in practice where the big challenge is. One, land bank at this point in time is in serious financial trouble. Without the land bank, those farmers will not be able to access production loans. Remember, to get a loan, production loan from any other financial institution, such as a bank, comes at a price. And given the economic circumstances, banks are very strict with making money available, especially to the agricultural sector. And if you don't have a good track record, or if you don't have any track record at all, it makes it very difficult. So the big question is, what kind of collateral will those farmers put up in exchange for a production loan? And secondly, what are all the supporting measures to assist them to make a success, not only for 1 year, but for the next 30 years?
Yeah, and it's very interesting if we take a look at this on the sidelines of that 10.5 billion rand that is needed to save SAA. Do we invest it in our failed national carrier, or do we invest it in the land bank?
Exactly. And my big question is, if we really are serious about land reform, if we are really serious about addressing the injustice of the past, I would rather urge government to reconsider giving money to South African Airways, because that airway serves really the elite. We need money to get agricultural development going and making sure that our farmers at grassroots level get the required support. Remember, those farmers have to compete with their international counterparts. And one thing that is currently happening is the dumping of poultry, the dumping of sugar, dumping of milk in South Africa. And if a farmer cannot recoup his input cost, then that farmer will really struggle to survive financially. So, one, we need protection from dumping from overseas countries. Secondly, we need financial support. And thirdly, those farmers need extension services. But I really want those farmers and government to consider partnerships between your black and white farmers, or your white farmer who's got extensive experience, extensive capital, to come into that space to assist those farmers, take their hands, and ensure that they are successful over time.
So, Christo, just to clarify for us, is this going to be the handing over of this land? Is it going to be under an agricultural lease? Because if we take a look at that facet of how governments, what government's track record looks like in terms of agricultural leases, it's not a good one. How is this one going to work?
According to the document, there will be processes in place. Farmers have to sign a lease agreement, and then they will put monitoring and evaluation measures in place to make sure that those lease agreements are honored. The big question is, who will do that? And given the track record of government, and I've looked at the reports that they have submitted to Parliament over time in terms of the rental agreements or the amounts that they have received over time from other farms that they have leased out, and really it's a disaster. So if they don't, one, either outsource it maybe to a financial institution with the necessary capacity, with the necessary oversight measures in place, I cannot see how a government institution with its high turnover of staff and the high levels of corruption will be able to really ensure that the requirements that have been stipulated in this document, whether those requirements will be adhered to. And that's the big challenge that we currently face. The other problem is also that I don't think the 2 months that they prescribe in terms of people submitting applications and people then being scrutinized and people identified, 2 months is for me a little bit too short. I think they need to give themselves at least 4 to 6 months to make sure that this is a comprehensive process to identify the right people, and that the process of allocation is being verified so that any form of corruption is dealt with.
Absolutely. Great initiative. Let's hope all of those processes are put in place. Thanks very much for your time. Christo Van Der Rheed is from Agri SA as we continue to unpack the story around the release of some 700,000 hectares of land that's vacant, unused state land.